Hey everybody, this is Dr. Mike Mandel, and welcome to session 27 of Brain Software with Chris Thompson. He has an MBA, he's a professional engineer, and he has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He is the parenting expert, the immortal Chris Thompson.
Hey, Mike, thanks very much, and welcome, everybody. We are back here again broadcasting from our studio steps away from the University of Toronto in the very epicenter of global hypnosis, the nucleus of international hypnosis and hypnotic phenomena.
I love that. The nucleus. You know, nucleus is one of those funny words, Chris, and it drives me raving mad when people say NUCLEUS.
Yeah, or nuclear.
Nuclear power. I say, look, N-U, clear, C-L-E-A-R. Nuclear power, not nuclear. Oh!
Yeah, it's one of those words.
Look, that's an infraction of such glanativeness to fix and such dersative persuasion that I have no idea what I'm even speaking on. So go ahead.
So what are we going to start with today? How about, actually, I need to make a little correction. So I think I said on podcast 27 that we were going to have the awesome Hugh Comerford come and talk about the horrible state of NLP in the world.
But he's refused us.
On 27, I said that we'd see him, and I was incorrect. We actually have him scheduled for podcast number 28. Totally my mistake. He hasn't changed the schedule on us at all.
But he admits it. Chris admits it, so it's okay.
That's right. So let's start with, let's jump right into hypnosis, Mike. I know one of the things that you often talk about is the need to work with clean states. And since we were talking in the last podcast about creating powerful states and resourceful states, how is this useful in the context of hypnosis?
Well, this is a very good one, Chris. It's not only useful, but it's crucial. When you have someone in a trance, when I say working with clean states, I mean make sure the trance state is a trance state and make sure the waking state is a waking state. Now, of course, I'm outraged, a number of you out there already who go, we know hypnosis is not sleep. Why are you saying a waking state? Because we emerge people. We don't awaken them. There's so much nonsense out there. Hey, guys, get over yourselves, okay? The public sees it as awaken asleep, and that's why I model that, because it fits with the model. I know they're not asleep. You know they're not asleep, but the difference between you and I is I don't make a big deal out of it. So let's say you have someone in a waking state. You want to make sure you're carrying no artifact of the trance over. You want the trance and the waking state to be severed and separate from each other. Otherwise, you risk confusing the subject and working with very unresourceful states at that point. You're bringing in garbage and muddy, stupid states. For example, if you bring someone out of trance, let's presume you've been working with a somnambulistic trance, not a somnambulistic trance, as one instructor says. He should be ashamed of himself. But suppose you're working with a somnambulistic trance and you have someone zone through the floor and their eyes are open, because your eyes can be open in that state and you can be in a powerful trance with no facial expression, carrying on a conversation just fine. But if you then bring the person out of hypnosis with their eyes open and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, you're wide awake, they have gone from a eyes open trance to an eyes open wide awake state. And it's very confusing, and it tends to muddy the waters and bring artifacts of the trance into the waking world, which is what you don't want. You want people wide awake. So one classic example I like to teach is when someone's eyes are open in a hypnotic state, always ensure you have them close their eyes before they come out of hypnosis, because you want them to open their eyes to wake up, because that's what we do to wake up every morning, and it tends to sever the state from the trance. And also you want to do what Milton Erickson did. You want to say hi, not hello, or oh, how do you feel, or are you feeling woozy or anything, and putting the suggestion in their mind during the coda that they're still hypnotized. No, you want to say hi with a big smile, because hi belongs to the waking world, and that will sever the trance state very neatly, and it will not muddy the waters.
Thanks, Mike. That makes a ton of sense in terms of working with clean states and how it fits in with hypnosis. So let's continue on with the discussion, and let's take one of the questions we got. Andy, a hypnotist in the UK, and he sends in a question saying, I've been doing stage shows and I'm reasonably good, but I'm interested in becoming a hypnotherapist. How do I best proceed?
Oh, very good question, because doing stage shows does not qualify one to do hypnotherapy by any stretch of the imagination. No matter how skilled you are, you need to get some proper training. I recommend you search the internet, find some reputable trainers in your area. I know Jamie Smart does some really good training. I don't know if he certifies people as hypnotherapists or not. You might want to look around and find out what's available. Ensure that your trainer knows what the heck they're doing, that they have a proven track record. It's not someone who's taken a weekend course. And ideally, we would like you to come to Toronto and study with us.
I was just going to say that, Andy. Fly here to Toronto. You'll love it.
Yep, and that'll be in April is the next Architecture of Hypnosis course. We already have one person coming from Holland or the Netherlands.
Yes. Now, hey, this whole question about stage hypnosis and doing hypnosis, or just in general interacting with people, it made me think about the concept of congruence. And
that's a good one.
It's a key concept in NLP, and I think it should be a key concept in just pure communication.
In life, yeah.
When you are delivering a message, there is an element of congruence or lack thereof that's going to strengthen or weaken your message and your delivery, right? I mean, a good sales pitch is very convincing. A good speaker is very convincing and credible.
Well, let's analyze what congruence is.
Yeah, let's talk about it, and then let's take it in terms of a good stage hypnotist is very congruent about his stage performance, his stage presence. So I mean, you've been doing this so long, Mike. Talk to us about it.
Well, congruence is basically, let's take the terminology from geometry. Congruent triangles, if you recall, are triangles that you can lay one over the other and they will overlap exactly with no white space, etc. Congruent triangles. And I think there's rules like side, angle, side, and angle, side, 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 whatever it is for geometry, for eliciting whether something is congruent or not. In a state, a congruent state is where everything is aligned. Your body language, your words, your vocal tone, everything is sending the same message. And if you want to see a perfect example of congruence, look at a little kid asking for something for their birthday, like a bicycle or Christmas or something. And, oh, Daddy, can I have it? They are completely aligned. Their state, their facial expression, their tonality, their body language, everything is sending exactly the same message. So in life in general, congruence is when we are sending one message. We're not sending mixed messages. And this is powerful in hypnosis, and it's powerful in our daily communications, which, of course, are eliciting trance states anyway. So if you're talking to someone and, they have a new house and they say, and you're looking at this beautiful house, you walk through it with your friend and they say, what do you think of our new house? And you go, oh, it's nice. They will immediately hear the incongruence in what you're saying because there's an ellipsis, a dot, dot, dot at the end of the sentence. Whereas if you said it with an interrobang, which of course is an exclamation mark.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Then it's much more congruent. Or, yeah, I really love it. Exclamation mark, as opposed to, I really love it. You can hear the incongruence because the tonality does not match the words. And the person will pick up on that. Well, what do you mean? What don't you like about it? Well, I just think it's too close to the road for those toddlers you have. Too dangerous. Or whatever. So congruence, you're sending one powerful message. And for any stage performer, you look at the giants of, theater. They are completely congruent. That's why their characters are so believable, because their internal states, their words, their body language, their physiology, their breathing, everything matches what they're saying.
Now, it's not just in answering a question, is it? I mean, if somebody is delivering a message and their intonation, when they're trying to deliver something that's powerful, and their intonation makes it sound like it should have been a question, that's another way of being incongruent, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is, Chris, because there are 3 different inflections that we can place at the end of a sentence or statement, whatever, which is flat is purely a statement. I went to the store, okay? A command drops downward. Sit in that chair, okay?
Right.
Whereas a question goes upward. Are you feeling happy? So upward is a question, flat is a statement, and down is a command. So if you do and he was like sitting there, and he was feeling like really happy, and he was like saying like a lot, and he was like really like powerful, and really like interesting. There's total incongruence with that.
Or if you're delivering a presentation to a group of people and you say, and I know that you guys are all really interested and you're all really getting this, like not the right way to say it.
Well, yeah, and let's suppose you have someone in a deep trance and at the bottom of the loop, the working state of hypnosis, you are now giving them direct suggestions. You want them to be commands or statements. You will feel better starting today. And you will sleep well tonight. You don't want to say, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to be happier, It's a question the way you're putting it. You will not have power in your suggestions if you're not making them either statements or commands.
And now let's break it down a little bit here. The unconscious mind, which again is just a model, you can't cut it away from the conscious mind. I guess you could, but you would blend the two together.
Right. Can't imagine you need a pretty big axe.
We'll have to edit that out, won't we?
We'll edit that out. We won't offend anyone. Yeah.
But, the unconscious mind is picking up on this stuff all the time. Just the way that you would pull away your hand from a stove with your unconscious mind, not consciously. You would pull away your hand after you.
We can edit that out. I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying, Chris, and you're correct. The unconscious is faster than the conscious mind. It works with a gestalt instead of single beam thinking. And the basic problem is the conscious mind can only attend to a few details at once, whereas the unconscious has the entire picture, including monitoring what you're thinking consciously at any given moment. And the unconscious mind, as part of its prime directive to protect you and keep your body safe, will detect that. I mean, will detect the heat and yank your hand away before you even feel the pain. The classic one I remember as a kid is, you run a bath or something, because when I was a kid, we never had showers, we had baths, and you plunge your foot in, not knowing it's like 2 degrees Fahrenheit below boiling temperature, and you yank your foot out, and then you feel the pain and the heat after you pull it out, because the neural pathways are not the speed of light. They're not the speed of electricity. They are electrochemical. So between all of the axons, you're having synapses and you're having action potentials firing that will then determine how quickly the message gets through. But your conscious mind does not know you've been burned until your unconscious mind pulls your leg out. I mean, it's quite interesting.
You're already exactly. You've already reacted, and then you realize consciously that there's pain, that you just screwed up. There you go. So anyway, why did I bring that up? Because why the heck did I bring that up again, Mike?
Wide awake now. Now, the interesting thing about it, Chris, is I guess that means that we are unconsciously aware of the dearth of good hypnosis in the world.
That's right. That's where
we consciously notice it, that we are unconsciously aware.
Yeah, no, I remember now where we were going. We were talking about if someone was to deliver an incongruent direct command in the depth of trance.
Right.
Well, it'd be the subjects, or the patients. Subject is a better term, I suppose, or victim. No, we don't call them that.
Edit that out.
For real?
If the person is in a trance, what do you mean for real?
No, I'm kidding.
Of course we'll edit it out. Now listen, years ago I had occasion to have a wonderful lunch just with John Grinder, and we were sitting talking, and he asked me a question. He said, Mike, what do you think are the 4 most important aspects of neurolinguistic programming?
And you got them right.
I did. I thought for a moment, and I said, metamodel, rapport, calibration, and congruence. And my memory jog is Mr. CC.
CC for combat conditioning.
Correct. So I came up, and he said, bang on. He said, that's absolutely correct, because with the meta model, you're eliciting the information you need, and you're also helping the client connect to the deep structure and enrich their map of the world. With the rapport, you are interacting with a client that will maintain the psychodynamic loop between the two of you so you can help them change. With the calibration, you're able to determine externally through analog behavior when or if not the client has changed. And congruence is going to give you the authoritative power behind your suggestions and insinuations that will cause the change to take place.
And so if you wanted to use an acronym for effective hypnosis as an NLP practitioner, would you just add in the extra M for Milton model, or would you switch out the meta model M?
Or add the T for trans.
Yeah, well,
Mr.
yes,
CCT.
there is a trans. Yeah, you need a trans, obviously.
Mr. CCT, meta model rapport, congruence, calibration, and trans.
Yeah, that is about as complete as I think it gets. But complete in a simple way. It's complete in a simple way.
In a very simple way. The thing about it's about connection, Chris.
Yes, ma.
The thing about this that's so interesting is we are now back to the point of how simple it all is. Hypnosis is easy when you're trained well and when you do it well. And we always marvel in every one of our classes we teach. The last architecture of hypnosis is a prime example. There are therapists who come out and study with us, and they are amazed at how poorly they have been trained because they've been taught that hypnosis is some really complex, difficult thing with thousands of language patterns to memorize and all this stuff. Absolutely pointless. It's, I said before, it's Bruce Lee said when he started doing martial arts, a punch was only a punch, then a kick was only a kick. And as he got really good, they became really complex and involved, and he made the whole art way too difficult. And then when he became a true master, a punch was only a punch and a kick was only a kick again. And it's the same with hypnosis. You come into the class, you learn, You don't need complex patterns to make unbelievable change with people. Do it simply. Make it simple. And come and learn how to do it.
You know, Mike, it's the same thing with practically anything in life, right? I mean, you don't need these complex models and multiple tools. You need principles and you need a few techniques. And
principles will get you anywhere. Yeah. And a few techniques to apply. Yeah.
I was thinking, the reason this came up with me right now in my mind is I was thinking about what people learn when they take your hypnosis class. They learn a process. They learn how to communicate effectively, and they learn how to be congruent when they're delivering their message. Now, where else could that be useful in life?
Right. Gee, I wonder if everywhere.
So it's remarkable. So when you see people saying that they've taken a hypnosis class with Mike and it has changed their life, it's not just because they learned how to do hypnosis. It's because they learned so much more.
Well, the thing is, Chris, and I appreciate you saying that, it's not a testimony to my skill. It honestly isn't. The only knack I have is being able to convey the information to them. It is their skill. It is their consummate skill. When people learn that they have these abilities, they've just never been taught how to apply them. It's part of being human to be able to induce trance.
Yeah, I really think a big part of it, too, is just that idea of learning. Mastery can be simple. To master something, at least to a very high degree of skill, and not be, you don't have to be the best in the world or even among the top, 20 or 30 or whatever. You just have to be really darn good by keeping it simple and mastering a few simple techniques.
And if you keep it simple, you will wind up being light years ahead of most other people doing this sort of thing. Those who complicate because they want to make a name for themselves or come up with all new techniques with their name. I mentioned the Sickort state a couple of podcasts ago. This is all irrelevant nonsense. Keep it simple, work with clean states, and do good work.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were talking also a minute ago about conscious and unconscious, and that was my fault, of course, I brought it up. It made me think about a presentation I was listening to, and I can't remember who was giving it, and I don't want to say what the subject was exactly, but essentially it boiled down to...
possibly be
I know.
There was a presentation, or it might have been a film I saw, or maybe it was a book I read, and there was someone...
it was on the topic of...
Okay.
I'll say it was on the topic of parenting, but I don't want to, I don't want to tell anyone that I'm nicer maybe than I should be, but...
Are you saying you're nicer than me?
Maybe, I don't know.
Thanks.
But the idea was that, people should parent consciously. And because
what the heck does that mean?
Well, the crux of the message, it just really pissed me off, because the crux of the message was...
You can't say that.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
The message was, well, you see this, they call it the subconscious, right? Whatever. The unconscious mind, we're going to stick to the proper words here.
We're going to stick to the one we use anyway.
The unconscious mind, is full of all this crappy negative programming, and it screws things up all the time. So as a parent, or you can just translate this to pretty much any other thing in life, if you're parenting, or let's say driving a car or whatever. I mean, I'd like to see you drive a car consciously for very long.
That's when you first start driving. That's why it's so horrible.
That's exactly it. So anyway, the concept is, well, you shouldn't let your unconscious guide your behaviors and your emotions. You should parent and substitute parent for anything, any other activity here, consciously. And think about everything you're doing. Always be consciously aware of everything you're doing. I mean, I don't think the people...
That'd be exhausting.
And how would you even do that?
How would you know you're doing it? I mean, let's go beyond that, Chris, to the epistemology of it. How do you know you're doing it?
You have to be aware of that too, and then it's just crazy.
We're running into yet another case of people clearly educated beyond their intelligence.
Yeah, now this is...
Chris, I think people have a right to be stupid, but they should do so in the privacy of their own homes.
Yeah. Now, the metaphor that I came up with when I was listening to this was, that's like, having Boeing create a new airplane with a really horrible autopilot. And it's just so horrible that they decide, well, we'll never actually use it. We'll just always make sure that there's a skilled pilot in
switch
the
it off.
And of course you should have a skilled pilot, of course. But does that give you an excuse to have a crappy autopilot and just leave it that way? Your unconscious mind being your autopilot, and you can consciously make changes if you want, but you have to install those changes unconsciously.
Right, you must install them. And those of you listening now who are possibly wondering quite where we're going with this, it would be incumbent upon you to permit your unconscious mind, which is down below the threshold of all the awareness that you've taken in at this point, to not only bring in a positive application of everything that Chris has just said, but find ways that are glanative and useful that you can then graft it across into the studies of all the important things in your life, whether they're parenting or flying Boeing 747s or whatever it happens to be, in a way that is congruent with your life goals and in a way that is useful to you, so that each and every component of that, as it comes back to the surface, will reflect all the parts of yourself that wish to align and be there for you wide awake now.
I love the language generator that you've got. I mean, it's so amazing, and you're so congruent about it. I'm trying to make you laugh. I am making the horrible faces and gestures.
He's doing worse than that.
I'm trying to make him laugh.
We'll edit that out.
He's not budging.
No, not paying any attention whatsoever, Chris.
Solid. So what else do we want to talk? I think the idea of people swinging the pendulum all the way to, an extreme in terms of having viewpoints, like this idea of conscious parenting versus not paying attention to the not using the unconscious power that we have. I mean, where else do you see in life people just swinging the pendulum all the way to some extreme that makes absolutely no sense?
It's in everything, Chris. It's in politics. It's in education. It's human nature that we go through this Hegelian dialectic. So we have a thesis, an idea, somebody attacks it, it becomes the antithesis, and then the two of them hash it out, and it leads to a synthesis, which is the two of them now have hashed out into this new thing, which becomes the new thesis that someone else then attacks. And this goes on ad nauseum. And this is what life does. I mean, that's how great ideas are developed. You come up with an idea, someone attacks it, you hash it out between you, and there's a new idea, which is a synthesis of the two, which becomes the new thesis that is then attacked. Some people call it problem, reaction, solution. I think David Icke came up with that, actually, but it's a great term. And this we see all the time. It results in the pendulum swinging in opposite ways. So we'll get, an extremely right-wing government in a country that seizes control and becomes almost fascistic. And everyone, whoa, we can't have this. So they spin it the other way, and they become this extreme laissez-faire government that lets everybody basically do their own thing, and nobody's working anymore, and everything falls apart that way. So they vote the conservatives back in, and then they vote the liberals. It just goes back and forth in politics and everything in life. It's human nature.
When you're describing this, I'm thinking about something you said on the last podcast about, somebody saying a hypnosis doesn't exist, and then he makes up a definition of it. He feeds you this straw man definition that he then collapses.
Wants me to defend the definition he comes up with.
So it makes me think of this whole concept, and you can apply it to hypnosis, that we start with a clean definition that somebody created something and they gave it a label. Let's say it's hypnosis in this case. Somebody discovers the idea that you can create hypnotic trance and create change, and they've wonderfully documented what they do, and then people start discussing it, and it's called hypnosis, and then they form their own new theory, and that's called hypnosis, and then that gets passed along, and other people
further and further and further from the original.
So far deviated,
which has happened in NLP, and that's what Hugh Comerford is going to talk about, because NLP has turned into black swan theory and the wisdom of crowds and all this crap. The wisdom of crowds is actually nonsensical. It's also called mob rule. So you might want to consider that. Anyway, we'll be getting into all that. I think we're out of time, Chris. We need to give you the therapeutic metaphor at this point.
Yes, we are committed to a slightly shorter podcast this time around. So let's close it out, and then we'll come back on the next podcast with Hugh and talk about the NLP awesomeness. All right. Metaphor away.
Last year, I had a wonderful event where I was speaking to a corporation in San Antonio, Texas. Now, I love Texas. I've always loved Texas. They give you the biggest, best breakfast in the world. It's a fantastic state, and they say don't mess with Texas. They're right. It's big. It's huge. Everything's wonderful. The people are just fantastic. Some of the nicest people I've ever met. Everything that makes Americans fabulous is in Texas. The generous, easygoing openness. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And I got to go to San Antonio, which is fascination to me because of Davy Crockett, the Alamo, and of course, Jim Bowie, who I'm a big fan of edged weapons, as Chris will tell you as a martial arts instructor. I've got an unbelievable cold steel Laredo Bowie knife. And I wanted to see the Alamo. So I spoke at the event, had a blast, walked to the Alamo. It was like 102 degrees, roasting, came back, went to the airport, and I had to fly home from San Antonio to Washington, D.C., and then back to Toronto. When I was sitting in the lounge in San Antonio, getting ready to come back to Toronto, which you remember is the most multicultural city on earth. It's about 3 million people. We have more cultures here, more nationalities, more languages spoken. It is arguably the most tolerant city on the planet. And that's great with me because my attitude is I don't care if you're black, white, male, female, Asian, Hispanic, Australian Aboriginal, straight, gay, transgender. I don't care. It's everybody to me is my brother or sister until they prove otherwise. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. So that's what Toronto's like. And San Antonio is beautiful. But at the airport, a weird thing happened. It was actually a non-event that caught my attention. I was sitting in the lounge waiting to get on the flight. Now, you must realize, Chris, this was hot weather, and I was traveling in my usual combat boots with steel toes, rolled-down socks, big shorts, black T-shirt with the sleeves cut off to show off most of my tattoos, buzzed hair, buzzed down to the bone. And I'm always polite to people because I can look like an aging skinhead if I'm not careful. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. So I always smile at children because I love children. And a family came up to where I was sitting, and they were Middle Eastern and maybe Saudi, and they were obviously well-to-do. The woman was beautiful in that way that a lot of Middle Eastern women seem to be beautiful, with dusky skin, gorgeous dark eyes like saucers, and she had this scarf around her head, multicolored, and beautiful dress, and she just looked amazing. And her husband was a good-looking guy. He was very westernized with a ball cap on, and they had their 3 kids. One was a little girl who must have been about 4, again beautiful. And she was playing with some toys, and her brother had on a Spider-Man shirt, and they were very westernized kids. And the little girl looked at me and smiled at me, and I made a point of smiling back at her. And she grinned at me and was really glad. And, the kids were playing, and I was sort of watching them, looking at them. And I realized something weird happened. I realized everybody else in the waiting area was refusing to look at these people. And it was as though they did not exist. Nobody was being angry with them or anything, but this whole nonsensical thing that, that Muslims are all terrorists and we have to hate them, it was terrifying because they were actually dehumanizing this wonderful family by pretending they didn't even exist. They just looked through them. And so I made a point of being nice to the kids and friendly, even though I was 20 feet away, I smiled at them and so on. And I noticed the mother and father looking at me. And they got on the plane first because they were in first class. And as I went by them, the father smiled at me and nodded. And then as I passed his wife, who was seated behind him, she pointed at my forearm where I have a tattoo in Arabic. It says Hurriya, which means freedom. And she saw that and smiled and said, thank you. Thank you for that. And it was the most heartfelt thing that somebody was not dehumanizing them, but recognized that they were just people. We're all just people. So I am unashamedly a racist. I only support my own race, the human race. I don't care about Martians or Venusians or any other race out there. But the human race, we're all in it together, folks. We might want to keep that in mind.
Thanks for listening to Brain Software with Dr. Mike Mandel. This has been session number 27. I'm Chris Thompson. Head on over to the website, MikeMandelHypnosis.com. Make sure you get on our mailing list for all of the awesomeness. Make sure you head on over to iTunes to leave a recommendation for the podcast and recommend it to others. All the ratings that we can get help get more exposure for the show, which is fantastic to help more people.
Come study with us.
Come study with us in Toronto. Next course, MikeMandelHypnosis.com/class. The dates will always be there. In this case, as of today's recording, the next class is in April of 2013. And check out, you'll find also details on the show, on the webcast, on the website for the Mindscaping course, February 9th and 10th in Toronto. Talk to you again soon.
Okay, we'll edit that one out too.
Yeah.